Well, it's morning on the West Coast. It's midday on the East Coast. 9:02 on the West Coast. 12:02 on the East Coast. June the 24th. Hope everybody's having a great summer day. It's going to be a mild weather day out here in the Bay, and the Krueg Show back at it. And of course, we are brought to you, like we are always brought to you, by Pig and a Pickle, the best barbecue in all of Northern California. Check out Pig and a Pickle. 2 locations, Marin County and in McCordar, Madera. They're open 7 days a week. They're in Emeryville, open Wednesday through Sunday. Best barbecue in Northern California. Get the brisket chili. I am so excited this morning. Popped out of the rack because first time on the Krueg Show as the coach, and I've seen him stream with Grant. I think I've maybe seen him stream with Vish. I've always liked his stuff, and we've kind of conversed a little bit through the chats. And he is with us. We had a nice little conversation on the phone the other day. Coach, good to see you, man. I'm glad.
Thank you, Larry.
Thank you for your maiden voyage here on the Krueg Show.
Thank you. Pig and a Pickle. I've made it. I have officially made it. So I'm excited to be here. I love your commentary, Larry. I truly respect your background and where you come from. And just how dope is it that I get to rub shoulders with a legit sportsman. It's just like the power of YouTube, man. The power of YouTube. So I'm happy to be here, man. Humbly, graciously.
Well, seriously, it is the power of YouTube. And I love this one from Brunny Side Up. He says, "This is about to be a good one, boys and girls." Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Coach, tell us a little bit about yourself. I mean, we've talked, so I know a little bit of your story, but I don't know how many people in the the Krueg Show audience know your story.
Yeah.
I just came about you watching you converse with Grant in a number of different live streams. And what I loved, and I told you this, over the phone, was that I love real ones. I love people who are real and they're not running for office. I never like the people who say everything because of the camera or the effect of everything. How will people view what I say? There's a true independence to Grant. There's a true independence to you and your presentation. And it really intrigues me, but it's beyond that because I think your knowledge really is impressive. One of the things I saw the live stream when you were talking about undrafted free agents the Niners had signed, and you were going off on this incredible detail on Kalen Laburn. And it's funny because you were saying the name right. You were talking about the kid. And I'm like, everybody that I've seen talk about this kid is calling him LeBorn. And his dad calls him Laburn. Dad says his name's Laburn, and he's got a great little history at Marshall and Florida State. And you were spitting details like the day after. And I'm like, this guy knows this player. And then I started listening a little closer and I realized, man, you've got a great background in personnel. So tell us a little bit about yourself as I adjust my camera here.
Okay, no, you're good. You're good. So I played ball all my life from a pup all the way up, and I ended up coming out of high school. I played at Valley Forge Military College for 2 years. Loved it. Best ball of my life. Ended up getting recruited to Marshall University by Coach Bobby Pruitt in 2005. Came through. Bobby Pruitt left. Coach Snyder took over the team over at Marshall, and I never made it to the field at Marshall. Finishing out at Marshall, I played semi-pro ball. I played for the Huntington Heroes. I played AFL 2 ball, and around 2010, those who can't play coach, right? So
I hear that.
I mean, it's just the truth of the matter, Larry. It's like, this is the dirty little secret amongst all the guys who are not on the field, whether it be personnel guys, coaches, assistant coaches. The reason why we're around the game is because we just can't play it anymore, right? Or you never could, and you still have the passion, right?
Yep.
So what I did, I came home and I did what every guy does. I started milling around my old high school. Went over to Bowie High School, got picked up over as coaching at Bowie High School in 2010. I did 3 years there and ended up churning out some guys to go D1. AJ Hindy ended up going D1 out of Maryland. Coached him up. had some linemen that ended up going to Iowa, some Towson guys, and when you're coaching, you mix up with other college coaches. So I had a college coach from Bowie State came up to me and said, "Man, what are you doing in high school? You need to come over here and check us out. Give us a look."
Right.
Went over to Bowie State and got picked up as the assistant offensive line coach there. That lasted for 2 months before I just made my way up to the OC's office. And Coach Jason Woodman, he's the head coach at Fairmont State now. He was my OC at Bowie State. He's my mentor. And that's where I knew I didn't know anything about football, right?
Sure.
You play all your life, but
you think and then you realize, you know what? Somebody knows more.
Yes. And like not even somebody, everybody knows more, right? So that's where I kind of cut my teeth. Coach Woodman, he did stints at Florida State, LSU, with Nick Saban and Jimbo Fisher. And I just sat down and just learned how to do it from A to Z. So scouting, tape, going through tape, recruiting kids, knowing how to self-scout, practice scouting, going through shells, putting together scripts, building scouting reports. Larry, I've done everything from chasing kids down to curfew to sleeping in cars in Walmart parking lots waiting for a kid to make it to his bus stop. So being at Bowie State was a really good experience for me, Larry, because I was at a smaller school and I got to touch a lot of things that other kids my age were still holding water bottles, moving bags during drills, making sure that the boys' helmets were put together the right way. But being at a smaller school, I got to be able to touch on a lot of different things at a young age that a lot of younger guys starting into coaching weren't able to do. So that's where I was able to learn how to recruit, learn how to scout, learn how to sit in somebody's living room and be able to figure out what do they need most, what's going on in this household. Is it the money? Is it the room and board? Is it the books? Right.
Right.
Is it the travel? Can we pay for his commuting? So I didn't get the pretty Division I football budget to go out on the road, right? I didn't have $250,000 or $1 million budget behind my back to go recruit these kids. We were begging,
Sure.
quite frankly. And we were begging and trying to get anybody and everybody who just fell up that was a crumb to come to our organization. With that, coached 2 years at Bowie State, and then I did some ad hoc scouting work for Georgetown University. So outside of that, I got a lot of friends up and down the East Coast, especially around here in the DMV area. And I still have a regular job because we got to grow up sometime. Everybody can't get to stay in the game. But now I've kind of taken my fandom and turned it into a little bit of a pressure release valve for my passion, because it builds up, you want to stay competitive. And right now that's what I'm doing. And I feel like my perspective is good for the fan base because I want to be honorable. I want to speak with integrity, and I don't want to gatekeep, right? I want to be able to bring everybody together and not make somebody feel like they're less than because they may or may not have some information. And while we're doing all of that, willing to be wrong. So that's
I love that last one. I love that last line, willing to be wrong, because none of us are right. People sometimes will be like, Krueg, you said this and this and this, and you were wrong. And I used to have a saying at the end of my radio shows where I'd be like, hey, thanks for listening to the show, everybody. Have a great night. And remember, Larry Krueger, often wrong, seldom in doubt. Seldom in doubt. But let me ask you this, your connection to the Niners. What's your connection to the 49ers? Because you're on the other side of the country.
Right.
But obviously you have great knowledge and passion for the 49ers and what they're doing. So where does that come from? Did you grow up as a Niner fan?
No. So I grew up as a football fan, kind of all over the place. As far as Niners are concerned, I got on the Niners when a good friend of mine actually got recruited to the Niners. He got picked up by the Niners. CJ Spillman. He came out of Marshall.
Yeah,
he was a
good
part
player.
of
Really good player.
Yeah. CJ came out of Marshall, and by way of just watching CJ and always kind of being interested in his path, because I just felt like CJ was a guy who never really got a shot. Big corner, fast. And I always loved his playing style. So once he made it to the Niners, I always paid attention to what was going on there. And also deeper in the years of just being a football fan and understanding the place that the Niners hold in the league. You know, from the East Coast, the Niners have almost kind of been the bastion of light of physical football on the West Coast, right? Whenever we look at how football is played, how football is done in the NFL, you know, there's ways how you do it. And whenever we look at the West Coast teams, they seem to love to air it out. They like to get to it a certain way, but the Niners are the linchpin of what I believe football is all about. The tenets of football: running the ball, protecting the quarterback, and going to get the quarterback and stopping the run. I feel like that is the philosophy that the Niners have always pushed. And I feel like it's important for the league, for the Niners to stay there.
And I titled this State of the 49ers, and believe me, if you're tuning in, we are going to get to the Niners. I have one question though, before we get to the Niners, and that is, of all your years in football, what was the one either task or job that you did, opportunity that you had? You mentioned recruiting, coaching. There's so many aspects of football, film study.
Mm-hmm.
Because I have one job that I did in my first year in football and the pros that gave me, I think, so much more than I ever anticipated it giving me. But I'd love to hear from you. What is there some aspect or some task or some small thing that you did in
that
football,
kind of set the stage?
Well, that either gave you perspective, sensitivity, knowledge, what was a key part of your kind of that you carry with you to this day? Is there one thing that you can point to, or two things? Yeah, please.
I would give you two things. One is scouting reports, and two is recruiting visits, the walkthroughs. So with the scouting reports, the reason why is because the scouting report is almost like the first endeavor on being able to beat a team, right? You have to look at it almost as if we are a fighting unit, right? And we're going to go attack this other city. We need to go win, right?
Right.
And the first thing you need to do is you need to scout, you need to scope your enemy, right? How big are they? How many teams, how many players do they have? What do they like to do? Where do they like to do it? Who's their head coach? Who are their other coaches? Who's sick? Who's injured? What's going on with this guy? What did this player do last year? What are they expecting out of this guy this year? What are the player bios like? And I've gotten scouting reports as a player before, but I never knew how much time and energy went into making them. And that right there, being able to, and this wasn't even building the scouting report and just turning it in. My scouting report got bled on. It got sent back 10, 12 times. Like, this ain't enough. This isn't particular enough. This doesn't have enough detail. You haven't even told me how big their stadium is. We're about to walk into a stadium and not know how big. Like my coaches really made me, I had to see the team, not just give names, not just give what they do on offense or what their scheme is on defense. I had to give a tactile, meticulous report. So it's not so much as the fact that everybody was going to read that report, but the report needed to be to a level where if there was somebody on the team who wanted to go that deep, they could, right? So scouting reports and scoping out teams automatically kind of set my perspective on how coaches look at teams in order to beat them. It happens way before we even start cutting on the silent tape, right? We need to know how your team is built. We need to know where you struggle at. We need to know where you're strong at. Who's the leader of your team? Who's not? Right?
I always call that kind of the essence. I don't just want the essence. I don't want to know about a player, know about a team. I want to know the essence of the play caller, the essence of the people, the team. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You cut to, more than just, the height, weight, speed, or the formations. Try to get beyond and get into the mindset so we can really understand.
I used to have a coach that would say, take me in the building. I'm not in the building with this scouting report. I don't feel like I'm walking through the hallways. Right? Yeah, why am I looking at the scouting report and I feel like I'm reading a magazine? Like, take me in the building. I want to feel like I'm reading something that I shouldn't be reading right now. Tell me something. So scouting reports are something that I became really good at once I understood exactly what they wanted to, because to be honest with you, they really never start or stop a good scouting report. What it really is it's something where you start so ahead of time, ahead of the time that the scouting report is there. It's almost like a running library of information that you have on them. It's not even something that you start or stop, because in order for you to get that type of information, you got to be around all the time. So you got to be there for their media day. You got to be able to click in and see what's going on in their media day. Their recruiting day, you better know who they recruited. You better figure out how and who's going to come in. So scouting reports is one of the first things that I had to do, like one of the first writing, like student type endeavors that I had to do. And it was hard. And the second thing is the recruiting visits. The recruiting visits are different. They really set the tone for you because it gives you an idea of how the kid is built. You're being around his family. You get to walk through the school. You get to see everybody's faces. If they have younger siblings, you get to see them be a big brother. Are they family oriented? Sometimes I've been on a couple of times where we've been on some recruitment visits and we'll walk through certain areas of academia, maybe the science department or maybe something. And you may get an ugly look from a parent, like, don't be playing around in this class. You know what I mean? Like, okay, this is something I got to watch you in this, like you get that family element of taking a recruiter on the campus because, and really it's a feel good moment because it's almost kind of like commencement. You deserve this moment. You worked all of these years and now we get to walk you through and you get to see the manifestation of your work. Right. So this is the campus. This is your new stadium. This is your new locker room. And it's a really feel good moment. And I don't like to forget about those moments because I use those moments like when it's time to get a kid to dead level center. Like if he's veering off, you see he's getting a little too gregarious in how he wants to do things. You pick up those family cues where you can kind of snatch him back in. Like, yo, your mama told you that you better not be playing with that science department.
Right.
Now, come on,
right.
Man. You know what I'm saying? Like, hey, man, hey.
Like a reset.
You don't miss 2 study halls. Now, your father, come on. Now, what would your father say? What would your father say?
Seriously. It's about, it's about, trying to kind of shake somebody without actually physically shaking them.
Exactly. And those scouting, those family visits, those recruiting walkthroughs, that's where you kind of get to see the element of the family, right? Yeah. So those 2 instances were really cool to me.
The ones that stand out to me are, and we'll get to the Niners here. I know there's people going, talk Niners. We'll get to the Niners, but I wanted to kind of break bread here with the coach because we both have football backgrounds. When I was in the Canadian League, I remember, the coach, the coaches that we would work with, the head coach was Kay Stevenson. The defensive coordinator who I worked with was Bill Urbanic, the late Bill Urbanic, great guy. He's up there looking down. He used to say, well, first of all, he used to say, Larry, you're fucking lazy. He used to say that all. I love you, boy, but you're fucking lazy. But beyond that, he would say, look, separate your brain from your eyes. In other words, when we're going to work out 5 linebackers today. You're going to do a deep dive this morning before we hit the field. And you're going to read everything there is. You're going to look at all their film. You're going to know them inside and out. Get it all in your memory bank, put it all in there, and then turn it off because what we see out there on the field will matter more than all of that breakdown. So it was, he used to say this. He said, let your eyes tell your brain what it sees.
Mm-hmm.
Don't let your brain tell your eyes what it saw, kind of a thing. So in other words, do your homework on the player, but don't ignore what you see. If your report says he's slow, he's fat, he's this, he's that, he's and you go and you see a guy who's just totally different, what you see takes precedent over what you read.
And new information changes everything.
And don't ignore what you're actually seeing. Trust your eyes. That was one.
Right.
The other one that really gave me a ton is that my job, I had a lot of jobs. I was a personnel assistant. I was a defensive coordinator's assistant. I was the assistant linebacker coach. I did all the takeoffs. I did the quality control. I mean, I did about 17 different jobs.
That's what molds you, though, right?
Oh, it's the best. It was the best. It was an incredible learning experience. But the biggest job, the one that I learned the most from, is I had the unenviable and the thankless task of being the Turk. So, when they wanted to cut somebody, they would say, Larry,
gotta go
get up early, go down to such and such's room, tell him the coach wants to meet him, bring his playbook. Then the coach would meet with him. I would sit outside the door. And then we trained in Yuba City, which is north of Sacramento, about an hour, maybe 45 minutes north of the airport. Then I had to take the team van and drive the player after he got all of his stuff to the airport. Well, you know what? You realized in that drive, because those guys, a lot of times guys want to talk. Sometimes they didn't. A lot of times they did. And you realize that the game isn't played by robots. It's played by people. And if you can't relate to people, you're not going to understand football. You're not going to understand the game. And I would get great stories. Some guys were crushed. Their dreams were crushed. They've been dreaming about being a pro football player, and this was the end of the road. And so you required a level of sensitivity. Sometimes they were relieved because somebody else's dream was being manifested into their dream, and now they get a chance
to do what they want to do. Yeah.
Right. And then you heard incredible stories. I've had guys tell me, you know what? I would say to them, what's next? What's next? Have you thought about what's next? And I remember this one guy, you know what? I'm going back to my farm in Louisiana. And I go, what kind of farm? He's like, we raise ostriches. And, so I'm going back to the ostrich business. And then I'm like, oh, wow. And he's like, it's actually pretty lucrative, So we're talking about their next step. And sometimes it was in football. Sometimes it was out of football. But it taught me to respect the players, respect the journey, respect how much goes into the journey, and to not see the number or the helmet, but to see the person. And when you understand when you can see the person and understand the people, your ability to evaluate them as players goes significantly up. And it was the greatest learning experience I ever had, because it brought me face to face with, one, how fleeting the whole dream is, and also how passionate guys are. You learned about themselves, their families, their motivations. And it was an eye opener, and it brought me a level of sensitivity that in my commentary, when I'm talking about players, I'm thinking about, when I'm talking about, if I'm on a live stream this summer with Grant, we're talking about cut downs. I'm not just thinking about, well, they got 5 linebackers in there, or they got 7 linebackers and they're going to keep 6, and which guy's going to get cut. I'm thinking, a little bit more, a little bit beyond that, a little bit beyond. To me, when I go in the room and I'm talking to guys, it gives me a little bit more sensitivity to their plight and their journey and how hard it is, and how I'm an observer, but they're all in. And it just, to me, it was really good for my head and heart to see kind of like football without the bright lights. Right. And without the fanfare, and without the headlines, and everything's not Monday Night Football in the NFL. Most of football is, done in, away from the lights, and it's the process of football, which is not Sunday. It's Monday through Saturday, and training camp, and year round, and the lifting and the dieting and everything that goes into, becoming the player that you want to become. So those are my two things. But I always like to ask people who I'm doing stuff with a little bit about their perspective before we get rolling. But let's I know we're 25 minutes in, so I've already probably turned off some of the audience, but screw them. I do this I don't actually mean that, but you know what I'm saying. It's about me and you here.
You'll be all right.
Yeah. Let's talk football. And before we get into actually the 49ers, what's every year in the NFL, there's a breakout team. There's some team that comes out of nowhere and really is heard from. Who's that team for you this year? Who's a team that nobody's banking on that you think, watch out?
I think Detroit. I like Detroit. I love Ben Johnson. I love what they're doing from the personnel standpoint. I really like their draft as well. Detroit's looking good, and Seattle, man.
They had a great draft.
Yeah, Seattle. I cannot help but just look at what Seattle did on the offseason. They got their trigger man. They got their draft together. Then they have a sophomore campaign and already a really good draft. They had a good draft last year, right? So, and then their coaching staff is class personified. Seattle's coming, in my opinion. It's Seattle and Detroit, and honestly, for the same exact reasons. I love their coaching staff. I love where they are. They know who they are. They're coming, and they got the quarterback. They got the quarterback conversation answered. So I think they're coming.
I like Seattle. I like both those teams. I think they're both good up and coming teams. I really like what Detroit's doing personnel wise. They're staying true to their vision. I think they were smart to hire John Dorsey as a talent evaluator behind the scenes. But Seattle's interesting, Coach, because they were 24th in the NFL on defense last year, 26th against the run. The Niners were 1-1, right? They were 1 against the run, 1 overall. I love that kid Witherspoon from Illinois. I thought that was one of the best picks in the entire draft. And they got another guy named Christian Young out of Arizona, who I'm not sure if he's a linebacker or a safety, but I know he's a baller. But here, my only thing with Seattle is, what has Seattle done to make them not a liability against the run this offseason? They seem look like a liability still.
And I agree with that, Larry. That's the one thing that they haven't done. I really thought that's why I was surprised that they didn't go for the Georgia kid that fell to them in round 1. I really thought that they were going to go get
Jalen Carter.
Yeah, I thought they were going to get Jalen Carter because, he already had some offseason stuff, but it just seemed like it's almost tailor-made for Pete Carroll's coaching style to get a little rascal in there and get them together. And it was a need, right? They had a very hard time stopping the run, specifically stopping the interior run, and getting pass rush. It's part of the reasons why we beat them. They cannot stop the run. So I don't know if they're looking at it from a standpoint of, this is what Pete likes to do. And and the only reason why I've noticed that Pete likes to do this is because it's what we do, but in the inverse. And I mentioned this on Grant's show in the last show that we did, but Pete is a defensive coach, right, Larry?
Yeah.
So with him being a defensive coach, you would almost say that Pete pours his draft capital and his money into his offense, right? And he uses his own expertise and his coaching staff to develop and build his defense, right? So almost if you're a defensive guy like Pete, it would almost kind of be an insult for him to, in a way, it would almost be an insult to say, hey, Pete, you need to go get that pretty nice first round pick to go ahead and solve your interior run problems. Where Pete's probably looking at it like, we got guys in the building we can coach up. This is something where we're willing to take a little bit of a bath as far as the money is concerned, where we're not going to go hardcore and spend money on our interior defensive line. But I feel like we have the coaching staff and the guys in the building that we can coach it up, right? And what do we do on offense? We do the same thing. We do the same thing with offensive line. We do the same thing on the offensive side of the ball with Kyle. Kyle leans onto his own subject matter expertise to be able to develop and to coach up certain guys, whereas most of us want him to spend high on certain picks, but Kyle pretty much likes to lean on the fact that offensively we can develop and get things together because of who I am. Monetarily and asset-wise, we can really pour that into our defense. And I feel like Seattle's just doing it on the inverse.
It is interesting, Seattle builds from the back to the front. The Niners build from the front to the back. The Niners put all their energy in that D-line. Pete's putting all of his energy and money on the back end. Kobe Bryant, Tariq Woolen, Jamal Adams, Quandre Diggs. They just drafted Devin Witherspoon, and they're getting it done up front. They did sign Draymond Jones, but they're getting it done up front. With Brian Monet, they took Cam Young out of Mississippi State in the fourth round. What do you think is the better philosophy? Because, I've always believed on defense, it's a rush and cover game in that order. You put up a big rush and you cover, but it's the rush comes first. But I don't know. I mean, with the 3-step drops and mobile quarterbacks and getting the ball out quick, you can neutralize a great rush with a quarterback that can make quick decisions in the quick game. The quick game's more in vogue now. Would you rather build like Seattle builds from the back to the front, or would you rather build like the Niners build on defense from the front to the back?
I like the way we build. And the reason why I like the way we build is because it's so hard to find big guys that can do both, right? Usually when you get a bigger guy, he's going to stop the run, right? And he's going to be really good at stopping the run. But you ain't going to go get the quarterback. He's not, right? And vice versa. Usually if you got a bigger guy that can go get the quarterback, he's going to struggle with being stout and stopping the run. And I feel like football is still played in the trenches. I hate to say I love corners and running backs and everybody else, but at the end of the day, it's about the guys who put their hand in the dirt. Honestly, you can have whatever you need to, but if you cannot control the line of scrimmage, I don't care what you have at quarterback. I don't care what you have at receiver, corner, wherever. And I feel as though that there's a lot of games that we win and we control from the line of scrimmage, right? I mean, the ball is on the line of scrimmage. The very first play, the most important people are around the ball. Everything else, it's all downhill once the ball is snapped, in my opinion. So, you know what I'm saying? So for me, I always love being able to get big, talented guys because, in my opinion, that's the true essence of football. Can we do what we want and make you go where you don't want to go against your will? If we can do that, we will not lose, right? And I don't like to play games I don't want to put the game in a corner's hand. That's not football. You're not going to put the game in a safety or a corner or a linebacker's hand. We need to go get the quarterback. We need to stop the run. That's how you win football games. So I like our philosophy best. Corners come and go, but you can throw away from a corner. You don't have to deal with a corner, right? You don't have to deal with the secondary, but you always have to deal with a defensive line.
I really like our approach too of the front over the back end, but I will say this: I think it's vitally important. You think of the great Niner teams of the '80s; they had Ray Rhodes. You think of the Patriots run; they got Bill Belichick. And to me, you gotta have a guy, a coach. I think on the back end who not only can coach it up, but can also identify the players that he needs. That's why I really like the addition of Wilkes for this team, because the Niners needed an infusion of talent and direction on the back end and accountability. And he, I think, provides all of that. But I agree with you. I think I'd rather get it done up front. But I want a well-coordinated back end. I mean, I was reading an article in coming out of Boston, that Christian Gonzalez, the Oregon kid, has far and away been the number one corner in New England's camp. And that was a steal. And Belichick he traded back a couple times. Belichick knows his DBs. He knew what he was doing. Yeah. He knows his DBs. He took that, was it Jack Jones or whatever at ASU? He knows his DBs. When was the last time that Belichick swung and missed on a DB? He coaches them well, but he can identify them in the draft. And I think you need that. I think Pete's got that. I think the Niners now have that. And we're going to start our Niner conversation on the back end. But first, Tyler Carestly says, but they talk about Seattle, but they get Bobby Wagner again instead. They do have Wagner, and Wagner's going to help because I think Wagner's a genius, but he's also a little long in the tooth. Let's jump to the Niners here as far as the team. What do you think of the 49ers on the back end? Because Lenore and some of the guys were talking at the OTAs about, almost like they've been humbled watching film with Steve Wilkes. Like, hey, you know what? I thought we had a pretty good year, but man, after reassessing, we didn't have a very good year. And they got a lot of young players. I mean, look at this: Lenore, Luter, Ambry Thomas, Hufanga, Jair Brown, not to mention Womack. I love this kid, Deshaun Jameson. I mean,
that's your guy, man.
I love him. I love him. We can talk more about him, but that's 7 young DBs for Wilkes's back end. I think we're going to see, this is the area of the team I think is going to grow up and really start to come on. Give me your thoughts on the Niners secondary. Let's start there, because I think everybody kind of viewed that as their defensive flaw. And I think that's becoming less of a weakness and more of a strength.
Yeah. But by way of our scheme, we cater to our defense. We cater to our front seven. We do. So the guys in the back end are asked to play a lot vanilla. They play a vanilla coverage. They're not given a lot of wrinkles or a lot of dexterity in the things that they're asked to do, especially in different positions on the field. They don't do a lot of blitzing. I can't remember the last time we traveled corners, where corners go from one side to the other.
Right.
Also, I feel like we started a little bit with a I don't want to say enthusiastic game plan with our DBs at the beginning of the season last year. If you remember, we were playing press man and we were daring to get beat deep. And that's when we had E-Man, before E-Man got hurt. I really saw how I started to see how they were going to shape our attack from the back end defensively. However, I feel like with E-Man going down, we kind of changed what we did on the back end. We kind of circled the wagons and allowed our defensive line and our front seven to kind of control what happens. Basically trying to get to the ball as quick as possible and doing our best on the back end without getting beat deep. Now, I love what Gip brought us, because I think that Gip is a true one-man high safety. I think that's how he makes his living. But in turn, that allowed Huff to play a little bit more free. Right. And because he's so young and we saw early success from Huff early on, I feel like Huff got a lot of attributes put on his game that he didn't necessarily earn yet earlier into the season. And I feel as though we saw some of those deficiencies later in the season with getting beat deep, playing with bad eyes, looking at the quarterback and trying to anticipate routes rather than staying true to what's in front of you. And I believe that hurt Huff. Now, what's beautiful about that is that we actually saw a little bit of bounce back from how Huff was playing earlier on. And he played very well in the playoffs. He actually closed the season out very well after what, in my opinion, is pretty much his worst game as a defensive back against Oakland. Las Vegas. Sorry. Moving on with the safeties, I do believe that bringing in Jair Brown is almost an indictment on the age and the production that they want out of that position for us in the secondary. I'm not mad at that, because they think the kid is a steal. Personally, Coach Poindexter, he recruited my little brother to UVA, the DB coach at Penn State.
Okay.
So I know Dex, and Dex is thrilled about Jair. I feel as though that we have another guy that wants to be a leader and wants to be a leader quick. As far as our corners are concerned, Charvarius Ward, I'm concerned on whether or not Charvarius Ward truly wants to be an elite corner. And that sounds crazy to just say that out loud, right? But he got his money, right? He's already on a good defense. How good do you want to be, right? Because I've seen stretches of gameplay out of Charvarius where you almost forget about him. He's so smooth. He's such a big corner. He's strong. He's not herky jerky as far as it takes a lot to get him out of phase. But bad things, they compile big on Travarius. If he gets beat deep, they coming right back at him. One of the things that I know is that Travarius is going to be very good with Wilkes because he's a physical corner. I see Wilkes using Travarius Ward how he used J.C. Horn with the Panthers, being able to travel, go from each side of the field, and being able to blitz. I want to be able to see that from all of our corners coming in. Now with the number 2 corner spot, I feel like it's at large. It could be Demo, it could be Luter, it could even be Sam Womack. Honestly, I like Sam Womack.
Oh, I love him. He had an awesome OTAs. He looked great.
Yeah, and I didn't get a chance to see that, honestly. But
wait till you see him this summer, Coach. This guy's flying all over the field. Did he get bigger? I don't know that he got noticeably bigger, but his play speed was noticeable.
Okay.
Noticeable.
Oh, yeah, and those are some of the things that I like about Sam. Sam, even if Sam, it's almost you know how this works, Larry. If we're looking for one position, what the guys don't understand is that we're really looking for 2 because we got to get a backup anyway, right? So if we get usually the backup guy who is not, I don't want to say good enough, but doesn't do enough to be the opposite corner of Travarius, is going to end up being our nickel, right? So I feel like we have a good problem. We have a good problem that we have at the other corner spot, because right now I see 3 viable guys that I feel okay with putting in that spot opposite Travarius Ward. However, that also means that in turn, we have at least 2 viable guys for the nickel spot. So I'm pleased with what we're doing from a development and personnel standpoint with our secondary. And then with coaching, I mean, what can't you say about Coach Wilkes? Calm, cool, collected. His reputation precedes him. He's class personified around the league as far as what he's done with DBs. And even if you just look at what he did as a head coach with Carolina, it was impressive. I really like what Coach Wilkes is going to bring to this defense. And then also, what's really good is that I feel like he doesn't really have that much bandwidth to spend on the front 7, right? That's all, because that's the number 1 part of our number 1 defense, right?
And that's Chris's baby for the most part, right? That's Koseric's baby. I mean, he's
right. I didn't want to say that, but it's the truth. It is what it is, right?
Yeah.
The D-line, Coach Wilkes is coming in there, poking his head into the D-line meetings. Like, you guys all right in there? All right, I'll talk to you later. So that's one of the things that I like. And it also helps because it makes sense on why Wilkes wants to call games from the booth. He's a DB's coach, right? And he wants to be able to see the field, in my opinion. As soon as I heard that Coach Wilkes wants to go into the booth, it made complete sense to me. I'm like, he's a DB coach. What does he need to be down there breathing over Coach Koseric's next floor with the D lineman?
Well, and you can't see the angles from the ground.
You can't see them. Yeah. So I think that this is perfect. I understand. He hasn't done anything as far as a coach is concerned where I wasn't able to interpretate, right? I see what he's doing, and I'm pleased for our defense. If crazy enough, I think our defense has an opportunity to be better than what we were last year.
And that's saying something because they were number 1 in the league, but I hear
exactly.
you. By the way, I think Wilkes is the perfect hire from a lot of perspectives. One, they didn't want to change their front. They like what they're doing on defense up front. They feel like they want to have continuity. Here's a guy that commands the room. And I love what he said they said, "Hey, Coach, how are you going to spend your off time?" He's like, "I'm going to sit on my porch in North Carolina, and I'm going to smoke a cigar." But, it's funny. I just think that he's got a great eye for talent, and he's going to give that back end. He's going to coach it up. He's going to teach those guys things, and he's going to issue a level of accountability that I don't want to say wasn't there because that's kind of a passing judgment on the last coach. But I think he's just going to up that level of accountability. Tyler Caressley says, "Do you think, Coach, that change during the season with Mosley getting hurt was out of fear getting beat deep on the 9 routes on the go route. What do you think? I mean, Mosley went down. I thought they were a noticeably less physical team against the run off the edges without Mosley, and I thought they lost a real alpha when they lost him. And now they've lost 2 alphas with Mosley moving on and Jimmy Ward moving on. What do you think of the super chat from Tyler?
Number one, Tyler's my guy, man. I be seeing Tyler's almost in all of my shows.
Okay, awesome.
But yeah, I do agree. Emmanuel Mosley was a huge loss.
Yeah,
huge,
very underrated.
Very underrated.
And he didn't get a lot of money. Get a lot of money. Neither did Jimmy. These guys left for not a lot of, there wasn't a big difference, I'm sure, in money that they were offering.
They didn't get yanked out of here. There wasn't a lot. Losing Jimmy, if anybody has the tape, just go back and look at us before E-Man got hurt on defense. Larry, correct me if I'm wrong, but we both scouted, right? Just think about your eye. It looked like a talent gap with E-Man on the field on defense, where guys were moving so fast and we were moving at such a high clip efficiently that it almost looked like we were playing against college guys with just the speed. We were getting to spots before offenses were even there, with E-Man on the field. And I believe that losing him was one of those worst case scenarios. Like, it cannot happen. Almost look at our corner situation in 2020 where we lost E-Man, and then I think Jason Verrett came back for 1 game and he got hurt. It was just like we just could not get that corner spot together. And E-Man, it has to go somewhere, right, Faithful? If we're going to spend and put all of our energy into our defensive line and our linebacking core, yes, we can put together a good a good secondary. But you do have to be honest, is that when you stretch it out and look at it from a 10,000-foot view, it leaves a lot to be desired on what we can and cannot do because we're thin at secondary, right? So with E-Man being gone, I do believe that it completely changed the trajectory of how our defense attacks offenses. I do feel like that we went a lot softer on our secondary. I mean, even when we had Demo closing out the season the year before last, I mean, Jesus, he was playing with so much cushion you couldn't even see him on the broadcast view. Sometimes, like, he was playing with so much cushion off receivers. So they definitely were circling the wagons from a secondary standpoint. And the indictment of that was even that season that I'm talking about, even with us having E-Man coming off injury, we went out and spent money on Trevarius. So in a way, we've always been trying to kind of put a Band-Aid on our secondary issues, right? And losing Jimmy Ward, which is a homegrown talent, and I feel like that's something that we didn't necessarily get the most out of Jimmy because Jimmy was perpetually playing out of position, right? So I feel as though that what we're doing with secondary now is that we're shoring it up. We're actually getting, I feel as though what we're also doing is we're kind of getting some developmental keys from Coach Wilkes. I mean, you know how it is, Larry. Every coach can't take everything out of the building. Well, they're gonna steal something from them. You know what I'm saying? So,
what do you think of Oliver, Coach? Because Khalil's saying, Larry, how did Oliver look out there?
He's huge.
I think Oliver, to me, looks like an upgrade in coverage off Jimmy Ward. He's not an upgrade as far as, personality. Jimmy Ward was a true alpha. He's not an upgrade as far as a hitter or as an intimidator, but the league's changed and coverage is got to be prioritized over that thumper, over that big hitter, over that DB that's going to separate the receiver from the ball. I like Oliver. I think with Oliver, there's a chance he could give them a better cover guy than what Ward gave them.
See, now I agree with you, Larry, right? But this is how ball is funny, though, right? Oliver may give us something that Jimmy didn't give us in one area, right? But you know how football starts, man. When football starts, it's all hands on deck, right? You don't play a position, you play football, right? And look at what we had to do with Jimmy. Thank God Jimmy had the dexterity in his skill set to be able to play multiple positions for us to keep the defense at a certain level, right? One would even say that Jimmy almost played out of position to help us be a number one defense. My thing is that Isaiah is coming in to actually fix a wrong in coverage as far as the slot and dime initiatives are concerned for our secondary. That's fine. But what can Isaiah play safety? Can Isaiah come down and guard tight ends? Can Isaiah do everything that we ultimately didn't want from Jimmy, but at the end of the day, we ultimately ended up needing from him because of how it shaped out. That's my
Jimmy was a Swiss Army knife. Jimmy could do it all. He could play any position. He could play linebacker. He hit like a linebacker, covered like a corner. He was a very unique player. I just think Oliver gives them. Oliver struggled at Colorado, and he struggled in his first couple of years in the pros on the boundary. But I think he kind of found his home last year in that nickel spot. And if he can just play this year the way he played last year in the nickel,
it's an upgrade.
I think that's going to give us an upgrade in coverage. Everything else, they're going to miss Jimmy. I mean, and they're going to really miss Jimmy's. There's certain guys that get the rest of the group ready to go. And Jimmy was that kind of a guy. And they're going to miss Jimmy's toughness and leadership. He had a presence in that locker room where Oliver, and I had a chance to ask him a couple questions, but I think he views himself as a leader. He understands he's one of the veteran guys in a young secondary, but it's going to take a minute for him to really win over the room and have that voice that Jimmy had, because he could do it all. Jimmy could be like, hey, if you're not doing your job, I can step in and do your job. Don't listen to me because I'm telling you. Listen to me because I can actually do your job better than you.
I'm actually showing you.
Yeah, I can show you. Let's jump to the other side of the ball because, we haven't talked quarterbacks and we're 50 minutes in here. Give me your thoughts. I mean, this has been one of the Niner Nation topics here. Do you think the 49er quarterback situation is overblown? Well, it's clearly overblown based on how much we've collectively talked about it this offseason. But obviously the quarterback position means everything. Where are you? I've never had a conversation with you about the quarterbacks. So where are you on the Brock, Trey, Darnold, Allen, call it a soap opera, call it a depth chart, call it whatever you want. People dig in. I just want to let you know before we get rolling that I asked Jesse Naylor the other day. I don't know if you know Jesse, but I asked Jesse, I said, do you think if you had to bet everything you own on the Niners have 2 franchise quarterbacks in Trey and Brock or 0 franchise quarterbacks in Trey or Brock, which would you put all your money on? He said 0. I've asked a couple people that question. They agree with Jesse. I go the other way. I know there's flaws to Brock, and I know Trey's a young man who hasn't done it yet, but I see 2 franchise quarterbacks. I see Brock as a franchise quarterback who's just getting started, going to get bigger, stronger. And I see Trey as a franchise quarterback, but he needs playing time. He needs to iron out things. He needs to just grow and play. I mean, he's a very young player.
Right.
I think they're both franchise quarterbacks. And yet I think there's a lot of people that have quit on Trey and quit on Darnold and just believe that they can't do it. And I think that's premature. Where do you rank? How do you see the quarterback position? Do you have a dog in this fight? Do you have an opinion or are you kind of in a wait and see mode? Where are you on the QB room?
Well, I'll start with your scenario. I believe 0. I believe we don't have a franchise quarterback.
Okay.
And this is why. Is because I believe that franchise quarterbacks are built. Okay, they're not born. You got to put everything behind your guy. And the reason why he's the franchise quarterback is because it takes so much energy to make one. It's impossible to have 2. And if you think you have 2, then you got none. In my opinion. this is what I look at, and I'm glad that we started the show the way we did, Larry, is because we talked about the human element. We talked about the boys first, right?
Right.
And Trey nor Brock asked to be drafted here, right? These guys got picked up by the organization with a plan in mind. So for me, I don't look at the players and ask them what the coaching staff is doing and vice versa. I don't look at the coaches and ask them what the players are doing, right? And we're in the off season, and the off season is about coaches. It's about preparation. It's about what you're doing to self-scout. It's about owning the wrongs and getting ready for the new endeavor, to be ready for the new iteration of your season, right? And I feel like this coaching staff has a tendency to disassociate themselves from quarterback failures. And what happens is that when you hear about from coaches whether or not the quarterbacks are going to play or not, I feel as though that we have potential starters, right? But there's nothing about the maturation process of Trey or Brock that says that this franchise is putting franchise initiatives around them. The franchise is our scheme in the team. That's our franchise, right? The quarterback is a vestige of making sure that happens. I don't, and that's the construction of how our team was built. So I'm not going to put a silk hat on a pig, man, and say, oh, well, Brock's our starter. I mean, Brock's our franchise quarterback. No, he's not. Brock got drafted in the 7th round, and he won 8 games and knows how to operate this offense the best out of all the quarterbacks we have. That's what Brock has done, right? Now, if we want to look at Brock from a developmental stage, yes, there's a lot of things that are left to be desired with Brock's ceiling, right? Brock can get better. Brock has a ton of room to get better, in my opinion, right? However, where is that ceiling, right? And how can we keep him healthy along the way? And when it's time to pay him, is he worth it, right? Is he worth that money, right? Trey, on the other hand, is you have a franchise team, you have a window, but let's just say it, Larry. Are you willing to lose to get this kid ready? Because that's what it's going to take. We're not going to have our cake and eat it too. And I think that's something that the Niners have noticed with Trey. And I don't think that they don't think Trey is good. I just feel like that they know that they can't win a Super Bowl if they start Trey. It's going to have to be about Trey, right? So my perspective is that I'm not going to, if somebody tells you who they are, you believe them, right? And this coaching staff has let us know that we got a team and we got a window, and we're going to find a guy who can operate this offense that puts our team in the best position to go win. Now, the bigger conversation is nobody who's a Super Bowl contender is running their team this way, right? Nobody is doing it this way. So that's the rub, in my opinion. I feel like we put a lot of pressure on guys who didn't ask for it, right? Trey's just trying to play football. Brock is just trying to play football. That's all they're trying to do, right? And I'm behind both of them. Now, personally, I think Trey should start. I think that the coaching staff should show their mettle, and they should try to develop the kid and get him ready to play. And if they can't get him ready to play, I think they need to be ready for the questions that we as a fan base and ownership have for them if he's not ready. But we also know that this team is beholden to winning a championship as fast as they can. So Brock seems to be that answer. And to be able to keep that conversation going, insert Sam Darnold, right? Because Sam has enough veteran. Let's talk good about Sam for a minute. I feel like I've done a lot of shitting on Sam, but Sam has a wealth of knowledge of being a professional quarterback. Sam has over 50 starts in the NFL. Sam has all the physical tools that you need. He just can't put it together on the field, which is huge, right? But you have to ask yourself, well, what do they see that I'm not seeing? Why they would bring this kid in the building the first day of free agency and then give him $7 million in incentives, right? It's almost kind of like a juicier Nate Sudfeld deal, right? Where we're almost expecting you to play if and when, and let me juice up the pot for when you do. So I'm not going to sit back and, we already know how we feel about Sam, but they don't feel that way, right? So we have to listen to them, right? And when I'm listening to what they have to tell me without me trying to butt in and put my own proclivities on what I want to happen, the way I see it is Brock saved them. They started the season with Trey, but they were ready to go back to their offense that they wanted to run because they signed Nate Sudfeld. And not only did they sign Nate Sudfeld, but they kept Jimmy in the wings. And when they found a better option in Nate Sudfeld, a cheaper option, they signed Brock, right? And I feel like that was a money move, right? Like, let's just sign Brock. Nobody on the staff, nobody in that quarterback room had any of the skill set of Trey Lance when he was starting. To me, that says that they already had the offense ready to go if and when Trey struggled. I don't think they anticipated him getting hurt. They're not nefarious that way. But if he struggled, when he got the hook, we had not only a good offense, but we had what we like to run. Case in point, as soon as Trey went down, our fullback, who gets way too much camera time, says, "Welcome back to 49ers football." Horrible PR move. Horrible. You know what I'm saying? And then Trey gets hurt. Jimmy comes in and does his thing. Brock comes in. The rest is history. And what do they do? What do they do, Larry? We got the offseason. We get to do anything we want to do. What do? We sign Sam Darnold. We pick up Brandon Allen. Okay? Guys that are diametrically opposite to what Trey Lance is as far as skill set is concerned. So for me, the only thing that sticks out from a developmental perspective, from a schematic perspective, is Trey. Everybody else kind of falls in line with a backup, a starter, and a contingency plan. I feel like that's where they are right now. And it's okay because that's where their team is, right? We're ready to win.
They're ready to win. Yeah. No, I mean, I think it's more about Brock. I don't think they've changed. Everybody's read into this. They've changed their thoughts on Trey.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know that they've changed their thoughts on Trey. I just think that there's a little heat maybe from above,
mm-hmm.
maybe from their timeline, maybe from their window, that they feel like they got to get it done. And they're prioritizing Brock over Trey because Brock fits their timeline over Trey. Brock's ready to play right now. You said you would go with Trey. If so, would you lose this? If you really think that that you need to lose, or that you would lose
mm-hmm.
if you went with Trey, and you'd still go with Trey, you would give up the season to. I'm not saying that, but if you think,
me,
because I'm not saying that. I personally don't think they would lose with Trey, but I don't think they would score 35 a game though.
No.
I think they would score less points. They'd have to rely on their defense. But you could make an argument that developing Trey might be in their best long-term interest.
I mean,
but they're choosing their short-term interest over long-term interest. But you're saying that you would lose this year and maybe give away this year to develop Trey?
We're already losing, Larry. We're already losing. Like, I that's the thing. I feel like, that's the question. There's a lot of fans who they love the fact that we're in the conversation, right? But
when you say we're already losing, what do you mean? Because they did make it to the conference championship,
and we lost.
Okay, but I mean, only 4 teams make it to the Final Four, and Purdy technically has yet to lose a regular season game. But you would say, you know what? The heck with that. The priority is not winning the Super Bowl this year. The priority is developing Trey Lance.
Yeah. Yeah, I think we should have did it a long time ago. And it's going to keep getting worse. I know it sounds crazy now with this type of season.
Well, no,
but
I don't think it sounds crazy. I just think it's a matter of priorities.
Yeah,
like,
I mean,
some people want to take a step back so they can take 5 steps forward.
Yeah,
Other people look at it as the 5 step forward is speculative and don't from the bird in hand.
Yeah, I mean, for me, look at the 2020 season, 2021 season. Those seasons, Trey could have been developing. He could have been on the field.
It's too bad not to interrupt you, Coach, but it's too bad that Trey could not have been drafted in year 1 of the regime, because 17. I think things would have come together seamlessly if Trey was able to grow while the Niners were building the rest of the deal. The timing here is a little off.
It's off. It's askew. It is. And I agree with that. If Trey would have came in 17 with Kyle, the rest is history. But for me, losing is losing as far as I'm concerned. Like, if you don't win the Super Bowl, you are a loser. You didn't win, right? You may have had a good season.
That's a really high standard.
But the reason why standards are there, Larry, is because you have to keep them. You can't move. You can't have a sliding goalpost. You can't have a sliding scale, rather, right? I feel like we're moving the goalpost. If we have a standard, which is winning a Super Bowl, and we know that what we're doing is keeping us away from doing getting our goal, then why don't we exhaust all of the possibilities that we have inside of our building? And I feel like one of the biggest possibilities that hasn't been exhausted is the 3 first-round picks that we spent on our quarterback. If look at it this way, what's going to suck is when the window closes and we're still going to have to develop a quarterback anyway. That's what's going to suck, right? Is that when the window inevitably closes because nobody's window stays open. And honestly, the league controls what our window is, not us, right? We think that we have control over our window. That's not the way it works. The way it works is that we put together what we need to in-house, and then we push it out to the rest of the league. And then competitively, we see how far away we are from everybody else. And that is our window. But we got it mixed up. We think that we can control our window with the players that we bring on. It doesn't work that way. It's almost like, Deebo Samuel is only Deebo Samuel until he gets old enough and he's not Deebo Samuel anymore, right? We keep talking about paying for these players and we need to keep this window open. Trent Williams isn't going to be Trent Williams forever. That's not a bad thing to say. That's a real thing to say, right? And if I'm looking at our window, I don't look at our window as a window of winning a Super Bowl. I look at it as we need to start using that window to find our quarterback. Like, it would be a shame for us to push all of this talent and all of this development that we have to brute force and go get a Super Bowl and be the Rams. And like, just everything falls off once we win. It's like, nah, let's use the window to actually find our guy. That's how I feel. What
do you think? What do you think of Callie Young here? He says, "Good luck telling Trent that we're prioritizing development over competing for a championship this year."
I can answer that question very easily.
Yeah,
Trent, you got paid. Show up to work. This is the NFL, man. I feel like we do a little bit too much capitulating to the guys that already got paid. You got your money, man. See you at work. See you at work, man. You got your money. I expect to see you there.
I mean, it's a hard line. It's a hard line approach.
It's not a hard line, Larry. How can
I look at it this way.
You're going to give me the money back? You're going to give me the money back?
No. I mean, you're basically saying to him, hey, look, we've got a young quarterback that we think in a year or two could be really, really good. And we're going to prioritize that over trying to win a championship in what could be your final year in the NFL.
Right.
And you want him to be cool with that, and maybe he would be. Trent's actually.
Hold on. We're not asking him to be cool with it. I'm not asking you to like it, but you're gonna understand it. You played in Washington your whole career. You know what it's like to lose.
Yeah.
Buckle up.
It's interesting. It's an interesting perspective. I'll say this. Well, this is what I see with Brock more than anything. I just see a guy who's ready to operate Kyle's offense and can make some plays off schedule and can extend some plays. And it's like, what is it going to take to beat? Let's talk about Mahomes in Kansas City. What's it going to take to beat Mahomes in Kansas City? I think it's going to take a really strong defense, which they have.
Right.
And it's going to be you got to be able to score in the 30s. And that's the only thing that I really feel like Brock can do right now better than the other guys.
Can
it's
I add
consistency. Yeah.
And we're going to have to get something from the offense that Kyle has nothing to do with. We're going to have to, because that's
off schedule.
That's the part about the game
that was the Jimmy frustration is
yes,
all Kyle.
Thank you, Larry. That was the part about Jimmy that frustrated us all, is that once he got off script and he had to start improvising, he could never find his line. He could never show something off script. He could never give us something outside of the offense. And to be quite frank with you, that is almost like our audible package. That is more needed in this offense. I could argue that that's more needed in this offense than it is in any other offense across the league, because we are so stringent. We are so beholden to shifts and motions, and the ball needs to go exactly where it needs to go. We got to give them something different. And if we ain't going to call audibles, excuse me, Larry, but if we ain't going to call audibles and give the offense to the quarterback where he can contemporaneously make calls during the game that he sees, if we can't do that, then our best chance is off script. That's our best chance at that. And if we don't give teams something more than what comes on the play sheet, we're going to get found out. 60 minutes is way too long to stay on script.
Oh, there's no question. You have to. You can have the greatest play design, but you have to have the ability when it all breaks down for the quarterback to make plays and to extend plays. As Greg Cosell used to say, late in the down, you got to make something happen. But I kind of think Purdy is a guy that can make plays late in the down. But here's the question, and this is where the NFL's flawed. In baseball, for example, you'll hear people say, hey, I want to call up this prospect. He's highly rated. And then somebody else will say, well, there's nowhere for him to play. And the last thing you want to do is call up this prospect so he can sit on the bench, right?
Right.
This is the flaw of today's NFL. Trey Lance Trey Lance is a unique prospect. He didn't play. He's played 1 year of college football since high school. So you and I, whether we love him, think he's great, think he's just good, whatever, we're in total agreement, though. He has to play to get better. This is the inherent problem. There's no place for him to play if you're going to prioritize winning at the major league level, at the NFL level. Are you talking about
a farm system?
Well, I'm just saying, what I'm saying is, in an ideal world, you would put Trey in AAA and let him play, and then let him build up that incredible talent and let him make mistakes while you're winning. And then when he was ready to step in and really lead and win, you could promote him. But the NFL doesn't have that. The NFL has nothing like that. So all you really have to do, the only way to develop young quarterbacks is to play them and take your lumps, and that usually means not prioritizing winning because you're probably going to lose some games. The other thing is, I think one of the main reasons the Niners didn't go to the Super Bowl is that game was in Philly. If that game was in San Francisco, I think that would, or Santa Clara, I think that would have been maybe a different outcome. So now there's only one team that gets the bye. So it puts even more pressure to win, because you got to make sure that game against Philly, if you can, is here and not there. So I agree that Trey needs to play to get better. But I don't know that if if you're Kyle Shanahan, who's to say, even though the Niners have been to 3 NFC championship games in the last 4 years, who's to say that he doesn't get dumped if they win 5 games this year, but they develop Trey? I think he's fearful, coach, of developing Trey for the next head coach.
Yeah, but Larry,
right? Don't you think that's it?
That is, if nobody can say that in a press conference to Kyle, nobody can say that. But that is, I wish all 49ers fans were listening to this show. That is the number one reason. People are talking about Trey's development. It's on Trey. The juxtaposition of Trey's development is Kyle's job security. They are linked together, right? And Brock represents a restart of that time. If Brock gets on the field, then Kyle essentially says, hey, we got this guy in the middle of the season. He played 8 games. He's coming off of a UCL injury. You got to give us time. No matter what it is, this is in the raw, right? I understand that we have a window to win, but if we don't win, there's so many excuses to having Brock as the starting quarterback. But if Trey starts, that's like, bro, he done been here 2-3 years. You're the offensive subject matter expert. You said that you could develop him. Not only did you say that, but you went up to 3, gave up 3 first-round picks for him, and he ain't ready. And then you know what's even crazier is that it's not even what Jed has to say or Dr. York, right? The public scrutiny of all 31 teams watching this will get Kyle fired because it'll be organizational malfeasance if Trey is playing games and he is horrible and Kyle is just going unquestioned. And he doesn't want that. And then not only that, it's not only the fact that Trey leaves. I mean, Trey stays and another coach develops Trey, but it's also the same thing that we just mentioned with Coach Wilkes coming into this building. Why is Coach Wilkes here? He's here to coach our secondary, but he's also here to leave crumbs behind so we can understand how he develops secondary. We can understand how he scouts secondary. We can understand how he plays with it, how he calls it, how he coaches it up. It's all in the meeting rooms. We have his DNA on secondary is going to be all over that building. And whoever comes in after him, best believe they're going to be there with the Wilkes package, stimulus package. And the same thing is going to happen with Kyle. Kyle knows that he saved this franchise from the doldrums. He understands what him and John Lynch did for this team through not only, forget the quarterback, let's just talk about NFL cachet. You don't think that we have a leg up with John Lynch calling teams? You think nobody's going to pick up John Lynch's phone call? You don't think that nobody's going to be running here to get on this coaching staff with this offense, with Nick Bosa on this defense? Kyle brings so many other things to this organization just outside of that quarterback position. And he knows that if he starts this kid and he struggles, there's going to be somebody who's going to come in and not only get the credit for the quarterback that he had the guts to choose, but that guy's going to get the credit for developing him. That guy's going to get the credit for the team winning the Super Bowl and being good. That guy's going to get the credit for all of the developmental stuff and SOPs that Kyle put in this organization. And on top of it, that guy's going to get the credit for winning, being a winning coach. And this is the element of coaching. This is the business of coaching that fans don't necessarily have that much knowledge on, where Kyle is always thinking about the next one. Forget what's in front of you. He's got to be looking ahead. And if I'm Kyle, I don't blame him. I do not blame him. He's looking at Trey like, kid, at the end of all of this, coaches get fired, not quarterbacks. They spent the assets on Trey. And it would be malfeasance. It would be horrible. That's the one thing that the Niners don't want. They don't want to look bad. That's another reason why Kyle's got us by the short and curlies, because he's got us looking good across the league. He's revitalized and rejuvenated the logo, right? So one of the biggest things about us is that we we're playing nice with Kyle from an organizational standpoint because Kyle saved our bacon, but at the same time, we have the scrutiny of the rest of the community, the NFL community, on us to say we cannot have you out here failing with the guy that you traded 3 first-round picks for, and we don't at least put you on the hot seat,
Coach.
So
there's
a lot going on,
so much there. There's no doubt there's a lot going on. Tyler says, Larry, our standard for this franchise is a Super Bowl win and bringing home another world championship. I'm a wrestling fan, and as Ric Flair once said, if you want to be the man, you got to beat the man. Okay, you're real. I'm real. If Purdy starts this year,
right.
First of all, the Niners don't agree with you. Like they're going with Purdy.
Yeah.
Unless they're not, right? Unless Purdy falls on his face or physically is not the same.
And we'll be on here talking about it.
All the stated thing is they're going with Purdy. What does Purdy need to do where you say, you know what? Damn it. I wanted Trey. I believe in Trey. Damn, I wanted to see what he was looking like. But I'm tired of fighting this fight. I'm just all in on Brock and Trey. If you're going to do it, you're going to do it somewhere else. Right. What does Brock need to do? Is it literally the Niners have to win the Super Bowl with Brock Purdy before you would say, you know what? I really believe in Trey, and I think he's got higher upside, but damn, they're doing it with Brock, and I get it, and good luck to Trey, but it ain't here. What's your standard?
That's not fair to Brock. I don't think that we have to win a Super Bowl with Brock for him to be anointed the guy. That's not fair to him. It wouldn't be fair to Trey, right?
And I'm not only saying for you. Like, what do you think? Because you got a sense of the fan base. You do these streams, not just yourself, but what do you think the fan base or the pro Trey element of the fan base that's saying, you know what, they invested 3 number ones and they got to take a look at this guy? Because I totally understand that perspective. I want to find out. I think we all want to find out. Can Trey do it or can he not do it? I think he can do it. Other people don't think he can do it. But what has to happen with Brock? If Brock is their guy, as they've stated, what do they need to do? What does he need to do? What does the team need to do where you would say, you know what, maybe it's just time to go with Brock?
Well, number one, I would need to see a bigger sample size from Brock. 8 games is not enough.
How many games do you need?
I would like to see a full season. I'd like to see a full season.
Okay.
If Brock is the starter, ideally, and this is unfair to the kid's body, but ideally, I would want to see him all year, right? Now, do I think he's going to do that all year? No, it's a long season. Things happen. You just can't be healthy for 3 straight months at the quarterback position, especially here.
Mahomes can do it, it seems like, but it's hard to do.
Exactly. But I would need to see a full season. I would need to be able to. I want to see his floor first, right? I got to see his worst game. I want to see 2-3 badass games.
A bad game's coming.
There's
no such thing as the NFL quarterback who didn't have a bad game.
Yeah, it's coming, right? So my thing is I want to see his floor. I want to see how he climbs out of it, and I want to see when we regress to the mean, what are we as a team, right? Because from a scouter's perspective, Larry, you know that we're seeing the best out of this kid. We're seeing the best right now, right?
I think he can get
everybody
better,
off guard,
but he's never lost. You know what I mean?
But Larry,
he can get better, but he's never lost.
But Larry, use your eye. We caught the league off guard. If you just look at the body language of some of the defenders after we broke plays, guys are like having their hands on their hips like, ain't this some shit? What is going on here? Like, we caught a lot of people off guard, right? And that's the element of football. All right. I don't want to say that as if
you're expecting real regression this year from Brock.
I'm not expecting regression, but I want to be able to get a full menu of what he can give me. What he's giving me is 8 games. He's giving me some really good games, right? Some games where it would almost be hard for me to judge Brock on his bad games in those 8 games because of what was going on. He really is not giving a full game plan. He didn't have any reps. The Seattle game, he didn't even throw for the whole week, and he came in there and played. I can't judge that game, right? Like, so for me, I need to see Brock healthy, which is unfair because is he really going to be healthy next year? We don't know, right? Being on the field ain't 100% healthy, Larry. You know that, right? So is he going to be enough for me to truly evaluate him on his throwing arm? I think that's not even going to be fair. That when the kid is going to be playing, he's going to be being judged as a starting quarterback coming off of an injury off of his throwing elbow. When you're trying to go get a Super Bowl, you can't be worried about that, right? You can't be worried.
I mean, I think that I think you're not giving Brock enough as far as.
Let's talk about it.
Well, I just think that I think we've seen some bad games from him. I think he's found a way to win his bad games. He's also played hurt. He's done it on the road. He's beaten teams twice. He's won in the playoffs. He's gone up against good defenses, Tampa, great D lines, Washington, Hall of Famers, Brady, the Blitz in his first game, Miami, came back from 10 down in the second half, Raiders, 2 playoff wins against good teams, Seattle, Dallas. I think
Larry, let me say this.
I think he's done some good things, and I think teams. I think it's safe to say that maybe Miami didn't expect what they got, and maybe there's a first couple games where people are like, "Hey, this guy's taking us by surprise." But I think it's the combination of he's playing really efficient football and taking care of the ball. I don't know that it's smoke and mirrors. I think there's more. Now he's going to lose, and he doesn't have the biggest arm. But I think he's got requisite arm strength, Coach. I think he was way better than Jimmy because when you look at the chart of the 9 windows, Jimmy wasn't throwing in the deep 3 windows ever. Brock is attempting throws in those windows and completing some. So I think the deep windows, you're not going to throw a ton in there, but you can't just give it away like Jimmy did. Jimmy just stopped going down the field. They essentially had no downfield attack with Jimmy. So I think Brock, I don't know. And people are saying in here, Krug, come on, you're a Brock fan. I am at this point.
He is and there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, I mean, I do believe in the guy.
Right. Like if you're a Trey fan,
but it's not that I don't believe in Trey. I do believe in Trey.
If you're a Trey fan or you're a Brock fan, you're still a 49ers fan. Right. So that's the operative point. Like this is just in-house squabbling. Like when week 1 hits, we'll be one big happy family. But
we go to the bank together, as they say.
Yeah. And what I'm looking at, Larry, is that you look at all of the superlatives that you named off, that you highlighted off of what Brock did, right? How much juice are you going to get out of that squeeze, man? It was only 8 games. Like the fact that you have so many attributes and superlatives off of what Brock Purdy did in 8 games lets me know that you don't have enough on him yet. You're just keep re-scouting the same games, man. But just like I know that a player shows you who he is over time, not in 8 games, not in a short period of time. He has to show consistency over time so we can actually label an attribute a real attribute. Or we can actually say, this is what he does in bad games. This is what he does in good games. This is what he does when he struggles. In my opinion, I don't think that you can do that for a player that's only played 8 games, no matter what the result is.
Oh, I hear you. But that, I agree with you. You need more. We need to see more. 8 games. But what the guy has done in these 8 games is more impressive than what Joe Montana did in his first 8, more impressive than what Steve Young did in his 8. And I'll say this. I did a deep dive in every Hall of Fame quarterback that's ever played in this league. Brock Purdy's first 8 games is more impressive than like 99% of the Hall of Fame quarterbacks. So all I'm saying is either,
Larry?
It's a hot start.
Huh?
It means that he's gotten off to a hot start. He's gotten off to an incredibly hot start. And that's all I'm saying. I don't know. None of us can predict the future, coach. I don't know if he's going to fall on his face this year. I don't know if he's going to come back to earth. I don't know if the clock's going to strike midnight. He's going to turn into a pumpkin. I really don't know. But all I'm saying is, if you look at all the guys who played quarterback in the NFL and just look at the Hall of Fame quarterbacks, like 90% of them start slow, which would be why I would say to the people who say that Trey sucks or that Darnold sucks, you're judging too fast. They're not developed yet. They need more time to develop. But there's so few guys. The fast starting group, Marino, Russell, Mahomes, Andrew Luck, Lamar. There's a handful of guys, maybe 10, Roethlisberger. Some of these guys were on really good teams too, and they started fast. But there's really not a ton of examples of guys who started fast who then just sucked. And people would say, well, Nick Foles has won a Super Bowl. Say whatever you want. A guy won a Super Bowl. I guess Kaepernick, you could say, started fast and fell on his face. I guess you could say Jimmy, but I mean, Jimmy was a totally different animal than Brock. Jimmy was already a veteran, had already, been to multiple Super Bowls as a backup and was established as an NFL player before he ever actually played. But he started fast. But there's not a lot of examples of guys who started fast and then evaporated. Usually the guys who start fast have gone on to some great things. I'm not saying that Brock's going to have a great career. I'm just saying that the odds are with him to have a good career because he has started so fast. I
feel like starting fast can be emblematic of many things, and where you start is important as well. I feel like Brock coming into the middle of the season with this team is advantageous to him and us as a team. I think that Brock came into a humming running game with the offense already had the kinks out. And I believe that what we did offensively at a clip at what teams expected to see from the quarterback position, we played outside of our frame, on top of Brock being able to give us off schedule playmaking ability and throws outside of the pocket, as well as mobility. That's another huge part of our offense that was bereft. Like Larry, not being able to have any type of mobility at the quarterback position in today's day and age in football,
it's game over.
Thank you.
It's game over. And if you look at the sack totals, Coach, to me, it's really interesting. If you look at the sack totals from the 80s, the 90s, the 2000s, and then last year, the guys sacking the quarterback in the 80s, 90s, and 2000s were defensive ends and defensive tackles. The guys sacking, there's a much higher percentage of sacks in today's game from corners and safeties. NFL teams
look that
are
up. What
NFL.
year did you start from, Larry?
Well, I'm just saying, go look at like the DB totals as far as like who's sacking the quarterback now. Now the quarterbacks are faster, they're more mobile, and so defensive coordinators are blitzing corners and safeties more, and you're seeing D linemen contribute a smaller percentage of the sacks than you saw 20 years ago. It used to be D linemen sacked the quarterback and everybody else played coverage. Now you got fast guys. So you see linebackers on delayed blitzes sacking the quarterback. You know who's a pretty good pass rusher? Devin White. He's an inside backer. You know who's a damn good pass rusher? Bobby Wagner. He's a delayed blitzer. You know who's a really good pass rusher? Talanoa Hufanga, because they blitz him off the edge. They walk him up in a cover 3, and he's in the strong safety role, and he's reading it, run pass, and he's attacking the mesh point in a run play, and he's attacking the quarterback if it's a pass. So I'm just saying that the quarterbacks are now being rushed with smaller, faster guys, partly because smaller, faster guys get home. And the D tackle, like, I love Javon Kinlaw. Guess how many sacks he has in his career? Like 1. He's got 1 sack, maybe 2, because he's just he's never going to be able to sack Tyler. He's just not. He's too big.
It would be a cleaner blitz. It would be less. The collisions would be less explosive. it almost is it seems like that would be the best way to do it in today's day and age. Like, it's quicker, it's cleaner. You don't got to worry about as many injuries. I mean, a D lineman tackling your quarterback 9 times in today's day and age, 9 times out of 10, he's not getting up. So yeah, I'm actually going to do some homework on that. That's a really good,
absolutely look it up. And Joey Nichols says lots of guys have started fast and fallen on their faces. Joey, go for it, bro. I mean, he says Carson Wentz, Tim Rattay,
Mark Rippon,
but Tim Rattay. I mean, who's Tim Rattay?
Tim Rattay.
I mean, seriously, I mean, what? Tim Rattay, what, started fast? I mean, Tim Rattay may have played, 5 games, 6 games? Rippon, Bolger, Blake. I mean, but we're talking Rippon played in the what year did he play?
Let me ask you a question, Larry.
We're talking about years ago.
let me ask you a question, Larry. What is Brock's final form? So where do you see Brock from what he is now, right? What would you be comfortable in calling a franchise quarterback from Brock's skill set? When Brock gets there, when you're saying, okay, this is our guy. He's got it all. Like, we just we'll deal with the deficiencies with what he has now. But at this current stage, I'm okay with what the Niners are paying this guy to be the starting quarterback of this team. He's the franchise guy.
What would Brock, what are you talking about statistically? Like, give you an example. What do you have this year? 13 touchdowns, 4 picks, something like that. Yeah. If he had played the full year, I think you're looking at 28 touchdowns, 7 or 8 picks.
All right, so let's
those are pretty good numbers. Now, if Trey started the full year, what kind of numbers do you think he'd have?
If Trey started the full year, I'd say Trey would probably be
he was 5-3, 5 touchdowns, 3 picks, 2-2, and 2-2 record career so far. So, what do you think he would do if they played him all year? What would forget the win-loss record, because that's not really his. We just attribute that to him. Let's talk about just what do you think? Touchdowns, interceptions. What do you think he would do?
I'd say Trey. I think Trey would do around 28 to 30 touchdowns, and I think Trey would probably throw about 15 picks. 15.
And what do you think Brock would? What do you think Brock would do if he played the full year?
I would say either just under that or way past it, because the way I see it is, I'm giving Trey 30 touchdowns because Trey can run. I feel like there's a lot of scramble ability, not running ability, scrambling ability that Trey Lance has, where he'd be able to get into the end zone a lot throughout the season. But I also love Brock's processing ability. I mean, I'm talking about when our offense gets on rhythm with Brock at quarterback, it's a beautiful thing to see, man. The ball comes out quick. Guys are getting the ball in stride. It's almost kind of like, because we don't run hurry up, which is annoying. We don't run hurry up or no huddle. We don't change.
It would be nice to see a hurry up every now and then.
Oh my God. Like, we're so obsessed with time of possession. It's like, Jesus Christ, pick it up. You know what I'm saying? But if we were to, with Brock, but that's just my point though, Brock processes so well that I haven't seen the numbers, but I would challenge somebody to look at how quickly our offense runs with Brock under center, because of the fact that he processes so well. And because of that, I feel like processing is a thing that it's almost kind of like a good problem to have. It's contagious, and you only get better when you're good at processing, right? You don't get worse, because I feel like processing is an innate ability. I don't feel like it's something you can teach. And with that, I think that by the end of the season, Brock will be moving at a high clip processing the ball. Now, is Brock healthy? I don't know. Is everybody around
that part's that you have to you got to kind of assume health for both, right?
Right.
Because even though we know, it's like, we don't know.
That's my next point though, Larry. With Brock, I see the offense being at the best that it could be. But with Trey, I see the players being at the best they could be. I don't see with Brock at quarterback, I don't think that everybody in this offense is used to their full potential. I don't think that Brandon Ayuk runs the full complement of the route tree. I think Deebo Samuel runs way too many sawed-off routes. I don't think that we utilize our slot receiver nearly as much as we can. I think that Christian McCaffrey can do way more in the passing game, to run wheel routes and screens. I think that that goes back to the element of football that has to transcend this offense. I feel as though that with Trey on the field, there's things that you can call, but at the end of the day, you're just going to have to start going with tendency. Like, you're just going to have to start going with, all right, well, this is what we do well. And I understand that this is the play that we called, and it didn't really happen, but this is what came out of it. But I'm about to draw it up and make this a staple of our offense because this is what my players are giving me, right? This is what's being shown to me on the offensive side of the ball. But I feel like we'll never get to that conversation with Brock at quarterback. And if we don't get there, I think that the fans will be fooled into blaming Brock for the reason that we don't. And it's really the system.
So touchdowns and picks, what are you thinking for Brock this year if he played the full year? He played basically half a year, 30 and 12. So you got a very similar. You got both guys throwing about 30, and you got Trey throwing 15 picks, and you got Brock throwing 12. Very similar stats.
Right.
We've got Rome 33. So Super Bowl window's close quick. Facts are we don't know what Trey or Lance is, but we know what Purdy can do. We don't have time to hope Lance can be the guy. That's one perspective. Once again, it comes back to they're in a weird spot because Trey, I agree wholeheartedly. It was weird. It's like we can talk about this thing forever. It goes back to John Lynch's comments at the Combine. He was asked about Trey Lance. He's like, first thing he said was, Trey's got to play. And he absolutely does.
Yeah.
But then he goes, and that's the challenge because we got a team that's ready to win right now. So Brock's going to get the first go. I think Trey's going to get the second go. I don't know that. Let's finish on that front. What is going to be the reaction from yourself and from Niners fans if Brock doesn't play? Well, let's say he plays sparingly in the preseason and plays decent. But he's going to start. He doesn't fall on his face, but they're still like he's our guy. But then Sam and Trey literally are like this in the preseason. They literally do the same kind of things. And Shanahan says, week 1, we're at Heinz Field. Brock's the starter. Sam's the backup. Trey's inactive. What's the reaction from the fan base? Are people going to lose their mind and just be like, Shanahan? Is there going to be mass outrage from Niners fans and Trey fans if Trey is inactive week 1 for either Sam Darnold or Brandon Allen?
I think it'd be eerie. I think it'd be a little spineless. You spent 3 first-round picks on this guy, and the guy who you had as your starter for week 1 last year is inactive he's a healthy scratch. I think that's more of an indictment on the coaching staff than it would be on Trey. But at the same time, it's about what they believe winning. It's what they believe what winning will do, what will best help the team. And if starting Trey and bringing Sam in as the backup is what they believe, then they're going to have to own it the entire way, right? So my thing is that I just want to parse back into your question. In my belief, if Trey and Sam are even, in my perspective, then I give the nod to Trey. Trey's only played 4 games. He's coming off a double ankle surgery on top of getting his mechanics together on his own. And he fought through a camp where he was neck and neck with a 5-year veteran with 50 starts. As far as I'm concerned, Sam isn't some reclamation project where he just hasn't found the right franchise. That's that's not the same. That's not the energy that's given to quarterbacks around the league. I don't know why Sam is getting it, but Sam failed. He had 50 tries, okay? Over 50 tries to do something with it, and he failed. And I don't understand how Sam is getting all of this well-wish optimism, and the guy who we spent 3 first-round picks on has only played 4 games, and everybody is so matter-of-fact about how they feel about Trey Lance. Quite frankly, I think it's bullshit. I do, Larry.
And first of all, we're trying to separate things too. It's like there's the noise of people, and then there's the Niners themselves, right?
Right. Exactly.
And it's like, I don't think that the Niners players, coaches have quit on Trey, but I think some of the fan base has.
Yeah.
I don't think the Niners or coaches feel Sam's a failure, but I think some of the fan base has. I think we're in a world where we judge things instantaneously. And in reality, if you know your history of the NFL, the quarterback position takes time. It takes time. And it's like, I don't know if Trey's going to be a franchise quarterback or not. I don't know if Darnold's not or going to be a franchise quarterback or not, but I do know this. I don't know yet. Yeah. I suspect Darnold is not going to be the franchise quarterback. We don't have anything. I agree with you. 4 starts on Trey. As far as if he was a child, he'd be at the birthing center at John Muir Hospital. He's still. It's like you were sitting outside he's wrapped up. He hasn't even. He's literally a newborn, and people have already decided he can't do it.
Right,
we gotta let it.
But
we gotta let
crazy,
it.
Larry,
give it some time. We gotta give it some time.
We do. And what's crazy, Larry, is that you have to say to yourself, like, look, one of the best things about being a part of this business is you will succeed if you just acquiesce one fact. I don't know anything. Like, I'm not as smart as I think I am. I don't know shit. I don't.
And it's evolving. Like, these guys they're better today than they were a month ago. Yeah. And, that's the thing. It's an evolving picture. We stamp these things like I've seen it, but I realize Sam's looked bad, but he's looked bad with the Jets. And now let's see. And yeah, Trey has not looked great, but it's a very tiny sample size. And you're talking about a very young quarterback who didn't play in college.
Finish it, Larry. Trey looks bad he's looked bad with the Niners.
I don't think Trey looks bad. I really don't. I don't.
No. With the 4 games.
2-2.
Yeah, I don't think he does, but that is the narrative. There are people that have said that they're calling Trey a bust based off of what they've seen. Because there's no way in the world that you can spend what you spend on the first-round pick and let somebody tell you that he's not good. I would have to see that.
Well, here's the one thing I'll push back on that. Look at the first-round quarterbacks in the last decade. There's a lot of busts in there, Coach.
There's a lot of busts.
True. A lot of busts.
True.
A lot of busts.
But
Jameis Winston was the first pick in the draft. Bust.
I just feel like
Mariota, second pick in the draft. Where's he?
I just feel like they're trying to shirk the responsibility, man. It's like, I understand. Yes, multiple quarterbacks are busts.
Yeah, especially in round 1.
Yeah, even the 5. Was it 5? 5 the year that Trey got drafted.
Yeah,
we all said that's maybe 1. Maybe one.
The vast majority of the public thinks Zach Wilson is a bust. I personally, Coach, think he's going to have a good career. But right now, today, June 24th, bust.
He's got over 20 games, though.
No, I know. He's played, and he's made mistakes off the field, too. But I'm just saying, it takes a while for the quarterback. Let's finish on this note.
Okay.
Give me a 49er, and dude, I appreciate you for your time, and we're an hour and 48 in.
Oh, we're good. We're good.
I know we're flying, but give me a player that you think that we're not talking about that it has the kind of talent that can really impact the 49ers season, and we're really not giving him a whole lot of attention. But you think that he's the kind of player, good or bad, that the way this player plays could really impact the season. Somebody out there that we're not talking about that you see as improving, or somebody who's being leaned on, who's you don't think very highly of, that single-handedly can change their fortunes this year?
Well, I mean, the elephant in the room is Drake Jackson. The
Good call.
strongest room on our team is the defensive line. And some would even say the strongest player in that room is Nick Bosa. And he needs a rush mate. He needs somebody on the other side of him to at least give 50% of what he brings in the pass rush game, and also be able to stop the run. I feel like a lot is being put on Drake. And if you think about it, they've socially engineered that position by bringing in, I think they re-signed Givens.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
They re-signed Givens and then brought in Cleveland Farrell for that
Austin Bryant.
And Austin Bryant. And I feel we're doing the same thing on that side, kind of like what we're doing at right tackle. We're leaning on our coaching staff and hoping that the development can come through. It's like we're burning the candle at both ends. We're hoping the development can get there before the start of the season does. And when the start of the season happens, the development's still going to keep going, right? Getting stronger and staying explosive and keeping your speed is hard to do. Pretty much once you get that 4 months out of the season to really get your body together, yeah, you get the 40 days before camp, but the work is pretty much done unless you want to be overtrained and get injured during camp, right? Your body can only take but so much. So Drake is going to have a significant jump from what he gave us in the beginning of his rookie season and him fading off. One of the things that I would like to see from Drake is just give me a whole season. If he can give me a whole season, then that means that his body can hold up. So I'm okay with that. All right. Now, if he can play an entire season, then we can get in what he's giving us during that season, right? So if we know that Drake Jackson is not going to be a healthy scratch, then we can either hopefully set him and forget him, which realistically I don't see happening, but we can engineer Cleveland Farrell and Austin Bryant and Givens in there to help him out along the way. It's going to be a labor of love with Drake Jackson this entire year. And I would like fans to understand that it's because we can't afford to do with Drake what we did with Aaron at left guard. You know, we completely sat Aaron down. Now, Aaron did get injured, right? So I don't think we meant to sit him down for the whole year. But Aaron did get shelved, and it helped him. He was able to get his body together, recover, come back, and also preserve his confidence. That's another big thing about players who struggle on this league. This is a grown man's league, okay? It's grown men in here. And if you think you've been across a bully before, imagine being across a bully who can actually punch you in your mouth, right? And you don't want to kill somebody's confidence with being a player that needs to be developed along the way. So I think that with Drake, the obvious is if he does not produce the way we expect him to, we're going to have a problem with rushing because, you know, it's a scouter's league. Teams are just going to start beating up that right side of the defense because
seriously, if Drake doesn't come of age, Bosa might wind up on the end of the year on the IR.
Yeah,
you know, because he's going to get everything's going to slide to him. He's going to be facing doubles.
Down.
They're going to chip him. They're going to. I mean, it's going to be
because they're going to know
be a war on Bosa
on the other side. So they're just going to beat on Nick. They're going to beat him down. So really, Drake. I know that we're looking at what Drake can do for his sake, but this is a team sport. Our defensive line is ran a certain way, and we need that right side, whoever that is, to help Nick. Because schematically, if we don't have to worry. If offensively we don't have to worry about the other side of the defense, then we could really bother Nick. And I will agree with you, Larry. Nick can end up on the IR if we don't have requisite power and strength on the other side of that defensive line to balance out effort.
Would you add a D end?
Not now.
Because I want Montez Sweat. You're in that part.
Montez Sweat is nasty, Larry, but that's too much. That's rich.
I want Montez Sweat. I know people talk Chase Young, and I love Chase Young too.
No,
but I'd rather Chase Young's had injuries. Chase Young's got a bigger price tag. I'd rather pay a higher draft capital price tag and give the Commanders I'll give him a third, and I'll give him a third and a fourth. He's a free agent at the end of the year. To me, if you put Montez Sweat on this team, I think they're better than the Eagles with what they have. Just what they have today, and add Montez Sweat. I think the Niners are better than the Eagles.
Yeah, because I forgot about Javon Hargraves. Yeah.
And Eagles lost 2 coordinators and Miles Sanders and some other guys.
Defensively, but this is my thing. The Eagles don't bother me on defense, honestly, because in my opinion, their linebackers are not. They're athletic, but they're not
special.
They're not intelligent. They're not. I don't see intelligent play from their linebacker position. They seek and destroy.
They lost Chauncey Gardner-Johnson on the back end. And
exactly.
He's a dog. He is a major player.
Where the Eagles worry me, though, Larry, is offensive line. They have a O-line, bro. Their offensive line is so good.
But it's getting older. Maybe.
It is.
Kelsey's a little older. Lane Johnson's a little older. They did replace the one guard. But I agree with you, man. Their O-line is real.
Too. They're an old school O-line. They're like body on body. They just got 5 silverback gorillas up front. It's like I feel like when I watch the Eagles play and I watch their offensive line, I just feel like I'm about to hear John Madden and Pat Summerall come over to broadcast.
Plus, Lane Johnson's got to be one of the greatest offensive linemen of all time because to my eye, he's false starting 7 times a game. But to the announcers, it's like he's just that quick.
No, he's not that quick. He's definitely a false start.
It's a false start. My God. Either he's the greatest tackle of all time, or that's a fucking false start.
That's a fucking false start.
Come on. Here are my two difference makers that nobody's talking about.
Okay.
Kalia Davis, the interior kid from Central Florida, who basically NFI list all year. I saw him in practice in December. He's 3'10" and lightning fast. He's a former linebacker. I think Kalia Davis, if Kalia Davis can be what I think he can be, I think that's going to be an impactful guy that plays a lot of meaningful snaps up front, and even with Armstead and Hargrave. And then on offense, I think Jordan Mason. I think, I love Mason last year, Coach, but this year he's easily, I would say, looks like about 10 pounds lighter.
He looks like a pro.
He's just so fast at this size that as much as I like Elijah and TDP, and I do like Elijah, and I think TDP's got some talent. I think they got some decent undrafted running backs. Obviously, there's McCaffrey, but the one guy that the Niners have that is taking it from this level to that level is this kid Jordan Mason. And if he gets some run and gets going, I think he's going to be one of their best weapons. And I can't wait to see it.
Too. I got another guy, Larry.
Who do you got?
Cameron Latu.
Who did really flash some amazing things in the OTAs and then in the last mini.
So if we're sticking with what we do offensively, right? Outside zone is the name of our scheme. And we leave so much left to be desired from that second tight end position, which really does find the field a lot. And
he's tight end too, probably. Him or Willis are going to be. I think they're going to take Warner and Dwelly's roles.
I think that Willis is more slotted for the H-back role.
I'll say this, Coach. This guy runs in the middle of the field he's not looking over his shoulder. He reminds me a little bit of the way Juwan Jennings runs routes in that there's no fear. That's what I love the most about the Niners. Debo, Juwan, Ray, Willis, Kittle, they run the middle of the field with no fear. No fear.
Yeah. Well, it's schematically because they know they're supposed to be open, right? There's other stuff running over top of them. It's not traditionally running across the middle of the field where there's somebody waiting on you to get smacked on. I feel like a lot of the stuff that they do up the field is vertically, right? So they're either running those quick slants or they're hitting those seams where they're given an opportunity to catch the ball and do something with it, which is cool. I love it. However, at times, I would love to see our skill set stretch their legs a little bit. I'd love to see us put corners in a bind. Like I believe that Brandon Ayuk is good enough to just go up and get the ball. You don't got to get him open. You know what I mean? Like you don't
have to scheme it. Yeah. No, he can win one-on-one. He can catch contest. He can make contested catches against the best of them. Somebody said Ronnie Bell. Like Ronnie Bell's interesting too.
Yes. I feel like when you get preoccupied with scheming guys open, what happens is that you're selfish with the real estate of the field. It's like, yeah, I got him open and he can make all of these yak yards. But it's like, yeah, but the tendencies are all the same. They pretty much know that this is where you want to be. I know you went left and went right, but you ended up at this spot. So what happens is that defenses, they stop following you around and then they just start meeting you at the spots. It's like, I'm going to just meet you here. So for me, I feel like there's a lot of meat left on the bone and we're going to be all right offensively.
Last two chats here. Corey says thank you for the chat. Corey says multiple quarterbacks have been a bust. How many have been labeled a bust after only 4 games? Next point, even of all the good ones, how many look good after 4 games? Trevor Lawrence didn't. Fields hasn't. Hurst, even Herbert didn't. Yeah, there's a lot of guys who start slow. And Callie Young says, hit that like button. Larry giving us a Saturday afternoon banger. Hey, it wasn't just me. It was the coach. Coach, awesome, man. Awesome.
I had a great time, Larry.
Dude, I'm sorry I took so much of your time. We just did a 2-hour stream. I don't know. And Vish is nowhere to be found. Usually if I'm going for 2 hours, it's me and Vish just, going back and forth.
Man. Look, man.
But I love your vibe, man. And we're going to agree. We're going to disagree. But that's the beautiful part about this conversation. We're just going to keep having it. And I
can't wait to be wrong. Like, I cannot wait to come up here and eat crow. It's what the fans want to see. You know what I mean? It's what they want to see, man.
Exactly.
So, I just want us to it's not that serious.
Seriously.
Right?
Yeah.
It is not that serious. But
we're chopping it up, talking ball. Nobody's got all the answers. I don't, you don't, the audience doesn't. We're all we're Niner fans. We want to see, at the end of the day, we want what Jed wants is that 6 Lombardi. And it's just a matter of we're debating how to do it, how to get there. It's going to be a sweet day when they do get there. New Dawn says, thanks, Coach. Love your insight. Awesome show, guys.
Yeah,
dude,
man. Thank you, guys.
Seriously, I love your insight. You're real, and I appreciate you. And let's do it again, man. Let's hook it up again. And when camp starts, let's maybe do something on the regular. I would absolutely love to chop it up with you on a weekly basis and get your perspectives, because it's, you have your opinions. I have mine. You got great passion, great delivery. So I'm a huge fan, man. So
awesome.
Thanks again.
No, man, Larry, you were a gracious guest. We chopped it up on the phone, and I already knew the show was going to be dope because of how we spoke on the phone, man. You're a football guy. You're a family man. I know you got your little young squire over there holding down the channel. Little Krueg. I see you, little Krueg. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
So
I'm putting him to work, man. I'm putting him to work. He's like, Dad, I'm making money on you. I'm like, you know what? Keep doing it because you're helping me. The kid helps me tremendously, no doubt.
He's amazing, man. I love this show, man. You're a family man with a great family, Larry, and who can't get behind that, man? So let's just talk ball. We're gonna have a great year. I'm ready for the
question. Coach, Jared Carlin in all caps. He's like, love it, Coach and Krueg. Coach, have a great Saturday, man.
You too, Larry.
What do you got? What's on the docket? What's on the plan? What do you got cooking today?
Oh man. Well, right now I got to take my 170-pound boy out, my dog Hannibal. So I'm a dog dad.
Okay.
I love my dog.
What kind of dog?
You called me and I was out with my dog.
What kind of dog?
A Presa Canaria.
Whoa, that's a huge dog.
Yeah, he's my boy. So I'm about to go out and take him and go run. And Coach got to lose weight, guys. So I'm down 80. I'm going to lose some. I'm moving more weight, guys. So that's what I'm doing. Just going to go work out, man.
Coach, have a great Saturday.
Thanks, Larry. Thanks for having me.
Take care. The coach hanging out. Oh, that was good stuff, man. That was good stuff. Dusty Gold says Kev's doing a good job. Yeah, Kev's doing a great job running the show. You think I run my channel? Hell no. My son runs the channel. I work for him. He's like, Dad, I need you to do this. Dad, I need you to make that. Dad, let's have this guy on. Dad. So he's the executive behind the whole scene. All right. Hey, as you see in the bottom of the screen there, Marin Auto Glass is our sponsor. Check them out. If you're driving down the freeway and all of a sudden you get a pebble hits the windshield and you get a crack and then it gets bigger, you need someone to change out your windshield. Marin Auto Glass is for you. MarinAutoglass.com, 415-883-3030. They'll come out, take out your old windshield, glaze in the new one, and sweep up all that glass. One-stop shop. My good buddy Saeed, owner of Marin Auto Glass, is a proud sponsor of the Krueg Show. 415-883-3030. When you contact Marin Auto Glass, tell them the Krueg sent you. Tell them you've been listening to the Krueg Show on YouTube, and you appreciate Saeed being a sponsor. It would really help out the show. And also, we are brought to you. Our title sponsor is Pig and a Pickle, the best barbecue in all of Northern California. They're in Emeryville, open Wednesday through Sunday. They're open 7 days a week in Marin County. Here's what they look like in Marin.
We grew up with a Sunday dinner. That means no matter how busy you were, no matter where the hell you were, you came to dinner on a Sunday night. Yeah, Sunday dinner without sausage, it's like a church without God. You know, how can you go to church if you don't believe in God? You know, and along with the sausage also became the discussions. That was discussion night. You know, it wasn't a typical family that you sit there and you're quiet, you know, and you don't talk with a mouthful. Oh no, man. Italians talk when they're eating. Italians even talk when they're sleeping. And definitely we talk with our hands. So if we can't express it through our mouth, through our lips, we express it with our hands. So, and that's what sausage is, really. It's an expression, you know, that life is good.
All right, coming down the stretch on the Krueg Show. Hope everybody's going to have a great weekend. Really nice weather here in Northern California. We haven't really gotten our heat yet. We're still in kind of the cool part of the summer, but give it time, right? Give it time. Terradome says, Pasquale Batanti looks like he said Luca Brasi sleeps with the fishes. Yes, we're gonna have Pasquale on the show. How about that this summer? You wait till that hits. You guys are really going to love Pasquale. Joey Nichols says, Pasquale, the man, the myth, the legend. We are sitting as we speak at 19,285 subs, trying to get to 20,000 before training camp begins. That's the goal. So if you're one of the hundreds of people sitting in the chat and you've yet to hit like and subscribe, please hit like and subscribe. It just supports the channel. Also, we have merchandise. If you want to buy merchandise from the Krueg Show and support the channel that way, just look at our link on our YouTube page. And for every person that orders any merchandise, we do an individual customized video for you. If you give us some little details about who you are and what you're buying and what your, perspective is. We'll give you a more detailed shout out for everybody who buys merchandise. The way I look at it is, hey, look, if you're going to take the time to support me and support the channel, I can take the time to cut you an individual video and say thank you. So really enjoyed the coach, and I hope you guys did as well. He does a bunch of stuff with Grant, and he's been on with Vish, but this was the first time we had him on, and he's passionate, and he has his point of view. We agree, we disagree, but the beautiful thing is we keep talking, and that's really what it's all about, folks, is just keeping the dialogue going. We all want the same thing, which is the Niners to get that 6th Super Bowl trophy and add to that Lombardi trophy haul that sits in their trophy case in Santa Clara. Have a great rest of your Saturday. As far as what we got planned the rest of the day and the rest of the weekend, that's TBD. I'm going to take some time for the day. As far as live stream the rest of the day, I'm not sure if we'll do another one today, but we'll be doing a lot of live streams in the next week, of course. And we got a bunch of people coming on. So we're trying to chase down Adam Peters, Niners executive, to join us on the show to break down some of the young players and just get, to me, Peters is doing an incredible job. When you look at the depth the Niners have and the number of players that they are getting on day 3 of the draft and after the draft, I'd love to talk to him about their process. I'd love to talk to him about some of the young players. And I'm working through Corey, the PR head, to try to get Adam on the show. And we really look forward to bringing that to you as well. So hope you enjoyed the live stream today with the coach, and have a great rest of your Saturday. Peace.
Yeah, never met a man I've been scared of. Careful, you gon' get exactly what you asked for. Here for whatever you bring me, getting handled. I answer to no one, I don't